Sir Kevan Lannister was not the only one killed the night Lord Varys made his triumphant return. No, the mincing eunuch also murdered Grand Maester Pycelle. The aged maester was reading in his chambers when the spider fell upon him, delivering a terrible blow to the maester's head, spilling both bone and brain on the book beneath him. Despite being Grand Maester and member of the small council, Pycelle's power in the capital, as well as his health, had long since been on the decline. Cersei dismissed him as useless. Tyrion imprisoned him as treasonous. Ironic, as Pycelle was a loyal Lannister asset. Yet, we're not specifically told why Pycelle showed such devotion to Tywin and House Lannister, which leaves us with the questions: who, what, and why is Pycelle? Before we get to the theories, please do me a kindness and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. And now, on with the video. Grand Maester Pycelle's life is one shrouded in mystery. The reader is not given even the basics of his past. We are not told what house he belonged to, if he had a noble name at all. We know not if he was trueborn or a bastard. Outside of his titles and the insults heaped upon him by others, Pycelle is only known to the readers as Pycelle. There are other instances where Martin does not include key details of a character or specific house's backstory. We know very little of House Stark's family tree. We still do not know the words of House Frey or House Blackfyre, and it wasn't until Book 3 that the words of House Targaryen were spoken. It wasn't until 2021 that Martin described the color of Vhagar's eyes and scales. This lack of history could be due to Martin's nature as a gardener writer. Perhaps even Martin himself does not know the answers to these questions about Pycelle's personal history yet. However, when questioned why Pycelle is so loyal to the Lannisters, Martin replied, "There is an answer for this." Quote, "There's backstory yet to be revealed, certainly, but if you asked Pycelle, he would insist that he was acting in the best interest of the realm. Most times when people say they are working in service of the realm, in truth, they are working in service of themselves." End quote. Lord Varys has declared many times what he does in service of the realm, but I have detailed at great length just why his declarations are nothing more than lies. Lord Varys' story has many more miles to go, but Grand Maester Pycelle's story has come to a bloody end. But where did it begin? What little we know is that Pycelle forged his chain in Old Town as a young man during the reign of King Maekar Targaryen, first of his name, meaning Pycelle started and completed his training between the years 221 and 233. In the year 259, he was selected to replace Grand Maester Marion, who died unexpectedly of a chill en route to King's Landing, to replace his predecessor. This we all learned from Pycelle himself during a conversation with Cersei in Book 4. It is easy in this series to doubt the personal confessions of certain characters, especially one like Pycelle, but he would have no reason to lie to Cersei, and all of what he tells her could easily be investigated to determine if he was telling the truth. Pycelle would serve through the reigns of 6 kings during his time as Grand Maester, the first being King Aegon V, with the last being the bastard King Tommen, who is called Baratheon but is entirely Lannister by blood. It is also from Pycelle that we learn it was he who helped dethrone the Targaryens to pave the way for Lannister rule. Pycelle confesses this the night Tyrion has him tormented by wildlings from the Vale for sharing Tyrion's plans with Cersei. Quote, "How long have you been spying for my sister?" Tyrion asked. Pycelle's breathing was rapid and shallow. "All I did for House Lannister." A sheen of sweat covered the broad dome of the old man's brow, and wisps of white hair clung to his wrinkled skin. "Always, for years, your lord father, ask him, I was ever his true servant. 'Twas I who bid Aerys open his gates." End quote. Tywin sent Tyrion to court to serve as his hand. He also sent Tyrion with strict orders to weed out any disloyal or incompetent royal counselors. Pycelle proved that out of his peers, he was truly loyal to the Lannisters, if not the most competent. Quote, that took Tyrion by surprise. He had no more been an ugly boy at Casterly Rock when the city fell. So the sack of King's Landing was your work as well? For the realm! Once Rhaegar died, the war was done. Aerys was mad, Viserys too young, Prince Aegon a babe at the breast, but the realm needed a king. I prayed it should be your good father, but Robert was too strong, and Lord Stark moved too swiftly. How many have you betrayed, I wonder? Aerys, Eddard Stark, me, King Robert as well, Lord Arryn, Prince Rhaegar. Where does it begin, Pycelle? He knew where it ended. End quote. It was Pycelle that bid Mad King Aerys to open his gates so that the Lannister forces gathered outside could enter the city. Pycelle suggested this, knowing King Aerys would believe Tywin had come to save the city. Meanwhile, Pycelle had surmised Tywin's true intent. The Lions of Lannister had not come to save the city. They had come to savage it. There is an interesting bit of wordplay in Book 1 during a council scene where the fate of Daenerys Targaryen is being discussed. Pycelle confesses disloyalty to King Robert, though readers are only likely to catch it if they read the book twice. Quote,
Grand Maester Pycelle cleared his throat, a process that seemed to take some minutes. My order serves the realm, not the ruler. Once I counseled King Aerys as loyally as I counsel King Robert now, so I bear this girl child of his no ill will. Yet I ask you this, should war come again, how many soldiers will die? How many towns will be burnt? How many children will be ripped from their mothers to perish on the end of a spear? He stroked his luxuriant white beard, infinitely sad, infinitely weary. Is it not wiser, even kinder, that Daenerys Targaryen should die now, so that tens of thousands might live? Kinder, Varys said. Oh, well and truly spoken, Grand Maester, it is so true. Should the gods in their caprice grant Daenerys Targaryen a son, the realm must bleed.
End quote. When Tywin Lannister served as Hand of the King to Aerys, Pycelle had spent the years admiring him more than he did the king he served. Pycelle wrote extensively of Tywin in his letters to the Citadel. The World of Ice and Fire tells us of these letters, quote, and yet the Seven Kingdoms prospered greatly during the first decade of his reign, for the king's hand was all the king himself was not, diligent, decisive, tireless, fiercely intelligent, just and stern. The gods made and shaped this man to rule. Grand Maester Pycelle wrote of Tywin Lannister in a letter to the Citadel after serving with him on the small council for 2 years. End quote. The letters go on to say, quote, Lord Tywin looms as large as Casterly Rock, wrote Grand Maester Pycelle, and no king has ever had so diligent or capable a hand. End quote. Pycelle even thought it fit to inform the Citadel of how charming Tywin was with his late wife, the Lady Joanna Lannister. Quote, though Tywin Lannister was not a man given to public display, it is said that his love for his lady wife was deep and long-abiding. Only Lady Joanna truly knows the man beneath the armor, Grand Maester Pycelle wrote the Citadel, and all his smiles belong to her and her alone. I do avow that I have even observed her make him laugh not once, but upon 3 separate occasions. End quote. The exclamation really shows us how impressed Pycelle was by this. This brings us to the first theory for why Pycelle favored Tywin. It was because he loved him. Pycelle would not be the first secretly homosexual character with unrequited love for another man. Jon Connington falls into this category as well. But is there any other evidence to support this idea? Unlike Jon Con, we are not privy to Pycelle's personal thoughts. Since we can't know what goes on in his mind, we can't determine if he thinks of Tywin in the same sad way that Jon Con thinks of Rhaegar. Let's look to Brienne of Tarth, another character who desires someone that wants them not. Brienne's actions tells the reader that she loves Renly Baratheon before Brienne admits this herself. It is clear she desires him even before she becomes a POV character. Pycelle shows no such affection for Tywin Lannister. He shows none of Brienne's desperation either. Pycelle openly admires Tywin, but his feelings do not seem to go further than that. Pycelle was once caught abed with a woman. Of course, this does not exclude the possibility of Pycelle having interest in men, but Pycelle has not displayed any signs of being bisexual or pansexual. There is a moment one could interpret to show Pycelle loved Tywin, perhaps romantically. It comes in A Feast for Crows during the viewing of Tywin's body. Pycelle and Jaime share a few words as the troubled knight stands vigil over his father's body. Quote,
"Yet he was all a king should be." Without his beard, Pycelle looked not only old but feeble. Shaving him was the cruelest thing Tyrion could have done, thought Jaime. Sir Jaime, I have seen terrible things in my time, the old man said. Wars, battles, murders most foul. The vapours rising from the corpse were making Pycelle's eyes water. The flesh, as the flesh dries, the muscles grow taut and pull the lips upward. That is no smile, only a drying, that is all. He blinked back tears. You must excuse me. I'm so very tired. Leaning heavily on his cane, Pycelle totters slowly from the sept. That one is dying too, Jaime realized.
End quote. But is this romance, or is this a man sad to see someone he deeply admired dead and rotting? I do not personally believe Pycelle loved Tywin in a romantic sense, but he did love Tywin, and in this series, love is the death of duty, the death of honor, the love of a partner, the love of a mother for their child, even the love one has for someone they cared for and openly admired. Pycelle's love of Tywin is one of the things that caused him to forget his duties as Grand Maester. So what other reason could Pycelle have for devoting himself to the cause of Tywin and House Lannister? As we see, Pycelle is content with serving any member of House Lannister, though perhaps not Tyrion. He does not desperately desire to be in the presence of Tywin and only Tywin, which is another reason I dismiss his actions as having any basis in romance. There are two reasons why I think Pycelle supported the Lannisters. For one, I believe that Pycelle admired the vast wealth and influence of House Lannister. When Eddard Stark arrives in King's Landing, he is immediately summoned to a meeting of the Small Council. There, he is reintroduced to Littlefinger, Varys, and Pycelle. Quote, Ned moved to the council table and said, Maester Pycelle, I trust you are well. The Grand Maester smiled gently from his tall chair at the foot of the table. Well enough for a man of my years, my lord, he replied, yet I do tire easily, I fear. Wispy strands of white hair fringed the broad, bald dome of his forehead above a kindly face. His maester's collar was no simple metal choker such as Lewin wore, but 24 heavy chains wound together into a ponderous metal necklace that covered him from throat to breast. The links were forged of every metal known to man: black iron and red gold, bright copper and dull lead, steel and tin and pale silver, brass and bronze and platinum. Garnets and amethyst and black pearls adorned the metalwork, and here and there an emerald or ruby. End quote. Look at the drip on the Grand Maester. It's obvious Pycelle cares about his appearance. Pycelle as Grand Maester would be expected to have a more intricate collar than your average maester, but the addition of the expensive gems is quite telling. Pycelle's collar doesn't just indicate his knowledge and his office, it is a show of wealth as well. It would be concerning that the Grand Maester of the realm is using his collar as a status symbol. This is a sign that Robert's council is declining in decadence. The Lannisters, as we know, are incredibly wealthy and many of them are corrupt. In this way, Pycelle is emulating the house he admires. But the major reason why I think Pycelle admired the Lannisters, Tywin in specific, is because Pycelle viewed Tywin as a turning point in Westerosi history. Remember, Pycelle instructed Aerys to open the city gates in hopes that Tywin would later become king. In that way, Pycelle could have gone down in history as a kingmaker. I believe Pycelle saw Tywin as monumental as Aegon the Conqueror. Pycelle wanted to help usher in a new era, a Lannister era. Many maesters go on to write important and influential books on historical matters. Had Tywin become the first Lannister king of the United Seven Kingdoms, Pycelle would have had the opportunity to document Tywin's reign. He would have been Tywin's Grand Maester. The book Pycelle would produce would be read and referenced for years to come. Pycelle's name would go down in history. From the beginning, Pycelle took note of Tywin Lannister and paid little attention to the actual king, Aerys Targaryen. Pycelle saw Tywin as the true power and did what he could to boost that power, for House Lannister and for himself. Pycelle, for the most part, loses his power after his arrest and then reinstatement to the small council. He is not quite active in major political matters, at least not in the open. He plays his role as Grand Maester to the best of his aging abilities. Throughout A Feast for Crows, Pycelle offers Cersei sound advice and warnings, though she never listens. Pycelle remained loyal to House Lannister to his bitter end. The untold story of Grand Maester Pycelle is the unwritten history of King Tywin Lannister. He was robbed of the opportunity to write the history of the Lion King when it was decided Robert Baratheon would be crowned instead. He was further robbed when Tyrion Lannister killed Tywin in a privy shaft in a brutal, anticlimactic, and humiliating manner, ending the life of the Warden in the West. If there was more to Pycelle, we may never know it. Who is left alive to tell his tale? Maybe when news reaches the Citadel of Pycelle's death, the maesters there will talk about their fallen comrade, and Sam as an acolyte will be able to overhear. Maybe through Sam we'll find out Pycelle's name, where in the realm he came from, if he has a house, and then perhaps we'll learn the truth about why he worshipped the ground Tywin Lannister walked on. But here is where Pycelle once again copies the man he most admired. Lord Varys says Pycelle befouled himself in death, creating a terrible stench. Lord Tywin did the same when he was killed. In the end, neither of them shit gold. And that's it. Grand Maester Pycelle was a Lannister fanboy. Even in fictional stories about dragons and ice zombies, there will be people that simp for billionaires. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did, it's time to call the banners. Make sure you like, subscribe, and ring that bell to turn on notifications. And ring that bell because I have an idea. All the Lannisters should buy all the ravens and then just call them X's. And then all the nobles of Westeros can pay 1 gold dragon a month to send a raven. Now that's a great idea. Thank you to the following Patreon supporters and channel members, including Philip E. Again, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.